let me show you now by switching over to Houdini how I created this in Houdini. Before I do that, okay, if you've never heard of Houdini before, or if you're just beginning in your Houdini journey, a lot of what I'm going to explain is going to be very difficult to sort of grasp. Okay, what I recommend you do is you can learn how to use Houdini. So here I have a couple of web pages that you can visit. First of all, the first one is Side Effects. Side Effects are the creators of Houdini, and they have a learn section with the tutorials, learning paths, whatever, and most of these are free. You can even filter by free or paid, which version of Houdini, which industry, level, all these tags are there, including if you want a specific author. Most of these are created by people, like ordinary people. Like I could probably upload my own tutorial. I'd probably upload this to the tutorial here as well. I guess that makes sense. But you can upload your, like, people upload the tutorials here, and you can find people that you like, and you can find quite a lot of different versions of, quality of tutorials. Sometimes really professional ones are here, but they end up being a little paid. Maybe the first one is free, but the rest of it is paid, and it's worth it. It's worth the money if you really want to, if you're really serious about it. But maybe you want to start off with the free stuff. Okay. The second thing you can do is you can also go to YouTube, and there's a bunch of YouTubers. There's a lot of them. Some of the ones that I really like is Simon Houdini. I think Simon now works. Simon Vestrate, I think is his real name. And he works for Houdini now, I think, or Side Effects now, I think, and he has some really amazing tutorials, and I learned a lot from him. And to be honest, to a great extent, the beginning is just going to be watching people and seeing what they do and just understanding what is possible, because Houdini is amazingly powerful and has so many features and tools. It's impossible to kind of just figure out immediately. So you definitely want to spend a little time watching these and slowly kind of figuring out what's possible. Okay. The second YouTuber is Bubble Pins. Bubble Pins is really amazing at explaining complicated things in a simple way. I recently started following a couple of tutorials here, and it's really worth it. I really think Bubble Pins is really diving deep into Houdini, and it's really worth following Bubble Pins and learning from Bubble Pins. Interesting name. And another amazing Houdini artist, especially somebody who tackles a lot of procedural assets meant for games and film and stuff, mainly games, I think, to be used in Unreal, Unity, etc., is IndiePixel. IndiePixel can really improve your HDA game, aka how to make these assets, and how to do it procedurally, how to think procedurally. He is amazing. Okay, it's definitely worth following these people. There's a lot more that I can't remember right now. If you just search them, you'll definitely find them. And this is how you're going to learn Houdini, okay? Because it's not an easy program. That's definitely true, but it's not impossible. You can definitely do it if you put in the time and the effort. And finally, you might want to look into some paid courses. There's a lot of really good ones, but some of them are not the cheapest. Some of them are quite expensive because Houdini itself is not a free application. I'll talk about that in a minute. One paid platform that I like, that I signed up for, is the VFX School. It's just the vfxschool.com, and they have a bunch of courses. I just bought one of these, and this is meant for more like less modeling and stuff, and more to do with like VFX for film, so that's, and like really high quality stuff. So this is really amazing to figure out how to use the software, because for example, this is the course that I took, and I'm still going through, and I'm like barely I'm not even halfway through. I'm like quarter of the way. I've been doing this since like May or something, a couple of months ago when I bought this course. But it's much cheaper than a lot of other courses, and the guy is pretty clear. But it's not for like a total absolute beginner. Yeah, if you're a total absolute beginner, this is gonna be great to you. Okay, you gotta figure it out a little bit, figure out how to use Houdini, figure out how to use the platform before you come here. And so this is where you can learn from. The last thing I want to talk to you about is the fact that Houdini is not free. Okay, you can get it for free, kinda. If you go to Houdini.buy, you can get the free learning edition. The free learning edition allows you to use it for free for personal non-commercial projects. You can't use it in any commercial project. You get full access to the software, but there are some limitations, like it has a watermark. It allows you to render at a very low resolution. I think it's like 720p max, and you can't render higher than that, and it's limited, and you have to keep checking in every month. Like it has an automatic expiry date every month, and you just keep renewing the license. It's automatic thing, you don't have to worry about it, but you know, that's how it works. The indie license, super affordable. It's just $269 per year or $400 per 2 year, and this is definitely cheaper. And this allows you to sort of use the full capacity of Houdini, but your revenue has to be under 100k, and you can use it for commercial use. Obviously there are some limitations, but I like the number of licenses per studio and the revenue limit of the studio, etc. And then we start coming into like the super expensive ones, which is like a workstation license, and this is pretty expensive. If you're at this stage, you're probably earning quite a bit more than 100k per year, so you can easily afford this. And Houdini, if you're using Houdini, I mean, this is not going to be a big deal, you know, for people, expert Houdini users. This is really affordable. Okay, you start learning with the apprentice, which is what I did, and then you switch to this when you want to use it commercially. Okay, the only thing you can't use with Houdini, the free learning thing, is the HDA, so that you can learn how to create an HDA, but you can't use it in Unreal or anything. So that part you might want to switch to Indie. Okay, cool. So now we've talked a lot about tools. Let's kind of look at how I created this. Again, this is not a Houdini beginner tutorial. I'm just going to run through the nodes, and you might be able to figure it out if you're already familiar with Houdini. If you're not, you know, at least it'll tell you what's possible, and you get an idea. So this is Houdini. This is Houdini, and this is the interface. Now I have slightly changed it from the default. I have kind of split it up like this, and here I have my viewport where I can see what's happening, and here I have an object node or a geometry node in the object layer, which is this geometry node contains this asset. So when I double click it, I'm coming in, and this is where I have created my HDA. You can see here the interface here is very similar to the interface in my the interface here is very similar to my interface in Unreal, if you notice. Okay, so I just have cup settings, materials, lid parameters, advanced parameters, and if I enable handle, the handle parameters will be there as well. Okay, and that's how it works. Okay, cool. And it has this curve thingy. So there's a curve that I'm inputting into the HDA. Okay, this is an HDA. This is a packaged node. So if I double click this, you'll go inside the node tree and see how I created this. So let's take a look. Okay, let's dive in. Okay, and now let's create this from scratch. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to exit this, and I'm going to hide this, and we're going to add a new geometry node. I press tab, geometry node. Okay, here I'm going to type in cup 2 or cup video. Okay, just to get that right. It's pretty empty. Okay, and the first thing we want to do is we want to create the base shape. So let's create the base shape. So how do we do that? First thing I want to do is I'm going to add in a line, and I'm going to add in a circle. Okay, because I know that this line, okay, is going to be the length of the cup, okay, and this circle is going to be the sort of profile of the cup, okay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a sweep node. So this node takes in a curve like this line, okay, and it takes in a profile like this circle, and it creates, basically takes the sort of line and sweeps it across in the shape of this circle, okay. So the circle for some reason has to be pointed in this direction, in this z direction, otherwise it doesn't work. So that's the way it works, you know. Let's see if we can kind of flip the direction here. No, not really. Yeah, okay. So what we have to do is now, when it's blue on the outside and white on the inside, that means the normals are inverted, okay. We don't want it to be pointed in that direction. So in the sweep node there's a couple of settings here. We can reverse the cross section and it'll just flip the normals, okay. Interesting fun fact, if you know, most of this stuff you can probably figure out online, but a lot of these stuff I just, you know, clicked around and figured it out, you know. So that's another nice thing about Houdini. You can just click around and eventually figure it out. Now I'm going to reduce the radius of this, and you can see when I reduce the radius of the circle, currently selected circle, it's changing the tube shape. Cool. Now obviously we don't want a tube that has holes on both sides. We want the cap. So on the bottle we have the option to add caps. There's end caps. If you put single polygon, you get a single end gon, but I don't want this because I want some control over here. So there's another option called grid, which is very cool, which just kind of creates a capsule type thing, and we can control the grids, number of polygons and smoothness with this cap division. So I'm just going to keep it at 3, and we can also control the scale of this as well as the roundness, you know. So those are useful features. We can use it. Okay, so for now I'm just going to flatten everything because I want my cup to be like this. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to group. Okay, I'm going to call this group top cap. Okay, and the reason is, when you create a group like this, what you're doing is you're creating this selection. Okay, and I'm going to disable this base because the base just selects everything, okay, or whatever you define here. And I'm going to group by normal, okay, and I'm going to say instead of having the spread angle 180, which just puts it at a huge angle, I'm gonna reduce this to something less than 90, because this is a 90-degree angle. So anything that's pointed, but it's selecting everything that's pointed in this direction. That's not what I want. I want it to be pointed up direction, and in Houdini the up direction is Y. Okay, so we're gonna make this direction, this is XYZ, and I'm gonna put it in the up direction by putting 1 here. So that's pretty cool. Okay, and now it selects everything at the top, and that's useful. Okay, because once we have selected the top cap, the next stage is to delete it. Okay, and there's a node called blast. There's also a node called delete, but I'm going to use blast, and I'm going to select group 1, which was well, let's rename this. Let's call this top cap. Okay, so this is the node name, but this is the group name. So I want to make sure that I'm having the node name as top cap, just the group name as top cap, so that just reduces confusion. And what happened was I deleted this top cap only. You can also flip the delete and just keep the top cap. That's another option. But yeah, so that's what we got. And then what I'm going to do is, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust. Okay, there's another thing we can do. We can increase the number of points here. You know, I'm just going to bring it up to like 24 points. Okay, so now we have more points, and because we added more points on the line, okay, we can adjust the sweep automatically gets adjusted as well. Okay, and this will allow us to enable a scaling feature. Okay, a scaling feature in the sweep node, which allows us to put some points and use this curve to scale. So basically what this curve is, the position, these lines, the position, if you notice, along the x-axis of this line is the position along the sort of the length of this tube, and the height of this point determines the thickness. At the top it's 1, at the bottom it's less than 1, and we can even go higher than 1.5, and just thicken it outward. That's pretty crazy. Okay, oops. Control shift. Okay. So that's some options available. Okay, so let's just put something like this. I don't know. Cool. All right, cool. Okay, so here's something interesting. Okay, so yeah, so you want to keep this spread angle a bit low. You don't want it to kind of select other upward pointing features. Okay, so that's another sort of issue with that method of selecting the top points. So we'll see what we can do about that. Okay, but for now this is working. Okay, the next stage is to make sure that we can smooth this out. Okay, and let's just use a subdivide method of smoothing it out. Very cool. We can just smooth it out this way, but I don't want to smooth it out this way because I want to. What if I wanted to smooth it out, but I want to hold this shape? So I'm going to switch from cat-mel clock to up and subdiv bilinear, and it subdivides without changing the shape, without smoothing it. That's useful. Okay, so then I can add a smooth node. Okay, and then smooth differently. So now if I increase this, you can see that it's still smoothing, but in a different way, because instead of being super smooth like that, you can tighten it and keep the edges still smooth, but the planes or the shape is held, rather than if I were to show you the subdivision version. Okay, you see that? And if I just keep increasing, it'll just keep smoothing like this. But this method allows us to sort of hold these edges more strongly, okay, by using this thing. Okay, very cool. But you might find that the more you smooth this, okay, and let's just subdivide a bit more. Something bad happening to the. Okay, so let's just put a strength of 10 for now. We'll see that happening when we thicken it. Okay, so before we do this, I want to do one thing, which is to add some thickness to this, because I feel like this is not the correct shape. Okay, so let's just disconnect this for now, and we'll thicken this. So what we're going to do is we're going to use poly extrude. This is a node that extrudes the shape, and there's a feature called distance, and we can just extrude it outward like this, and you can see that it is extruding outward, but it kind of doesn't have a back face. Okay, and we can enable a back face by enabling this option here called output back, and boom, all of a sudden we have a back face. That's really useful. Okay, now if we were to connect this to our subdivision tools, we can start to see some issues happening right here. You see this? This smoothing is kind of twisting and causing some problems because it's not correct. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm just going to fuse this just to see if that can kind of fix these issues. Yes, it does. Okay, so that kind of fixed the issue. Okay, solved it even better than I did. Okay, probably because there were duplicate points. So fuse, what fuse does is it you might not notice this, but let's just try to go here. Okay, there's multiple points here. You can't really see it unless you enable point numbers, and you can see that this has like overlapping numbers. As soon as I fuse it, it'll clear up and delete all these. It'll merge all these points that are overlapping at a distance of this much. Okay, and then when you smooth it, it looks much better. Okay, and that kind of solves that problem. Okay, cool. And we kind of smooth the shape. Very cool. Now, one thing that I've noticed is, now if we were to reduce our points down to like 4 divisions, things start to look a little awkward, let's just say 6 divisions. Okay, it's a bit jaggedy on these edges. It's a bit jaggedy here. Okay, and what we could do is, even though we smooth it, it's not really smoothing the way we like, so one option to fix this, I mean, there's maybe we'll fix this later. Okay, for now we'll just keep it this way. Okay, so I feel like we've pretty much got the cup shape down, more or less. Okay, so for now we'll just put a null here, and we'll call this out cup. Okay, cool. And I'm gonna press C and put a color here, just to tell myself that this is the end of this. Like, this is a special node. Okay, and one last thing I want to add to this is I'm gonna add just a normal node, just to add normals to this. I feel like that might just fix any normal issues that we might be facing. Okay, and that's the cup, and that's pretty simple. It's a little simpler than my version. In fact, I kind of improved it slightly with this fuse, which fixed it a bit better than what I was doing, because I didn't notice the problem properly. So that's the cup. So I'm gonna just highlight this and put a frame over it. So there's a button here that creates a frame. I'm gonna call this cup. Okay, then I'm gonna go back one step. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select everything. Okay, and I'm going to let's do that later. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to add the handle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in curve bezier. Okay, and that's going to create a bezier, but before that I'm going to template this so I can see where this is, and then I'm going to go to the front view, okay, by pressing 3 on my number pad, and while the curve is selected, you can select this button which will give you the curve tools, and you can see here if you press Control and left click, you'll insert a point on the curve. So let's just do that. Curve, left click. I'm just gonna create a simple curve like this. and then I'm going to press enter. Okay, then it says here middle mouse button to drag. Okay, the curve point. Great. And what I can do is, oops, I think middle mouse, not middle mouse button, shift, no, in fact, let's I think it's shift. What is it? Okay, I'm gonna restart this because I think I drew it, but I didn't create the curve that I wanted. If you left click, control and left click, you insert a point, and then if you left click and drag, you can kind of adjust the curvature. Okay, press enter, and I do believe we can adjust this as well, but we'll just keep this like this for now. Okay, cool. Just, you know, it doesn't matter so much. Okay, when you click on the points, you can see that these points are not ideal. So what we're going to do is we're going to use something called resample. And resample, what it's going to do is it's going to evenly kind of distribute the points a little bit, and it's also going to kind of smooth it out just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is then I'm going to subdivide. I could probably just increase the resampling, but I want to subdivide because I want it to smooth further. I wanted to smooth the shape. Okay, and I'm going to increase this. No, I'm going to keep it at this, and then I'm going to resample again. Okay, why? Because I want to reduce the subdivisions, and then I want to, you know, if you adjust this length, you can increase, it's the length between the points. Okay, which is kind of cool, but I want to do this in a different way. Okay, 0.0, what was it? 0.1. okay, I want to disable based on maximum segment length and enable maximum segments. So this is going to decide how many of these segments are there all together, and that's useful because I can use this in my HDA. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to, now we have this sort of shape, what we're going to do now is we're going to use a circle. Okay, and we're going to use another what's the word, sweep node. Okay, boom, immediately we have a disaster. Let's go back to this mode, and this is because this is way thick. Okay, so we can just reduce this radius quite a lot, and we'll reduce it even further maybe. Okay, and I'm going to reverse the cross sections, and I'm going to add in caps grid again. And this time I'm just going to keep it like that, and that kind of gives me this shape. And you can again apply this sort of scaling thingy, which is really useful. And then we can change this to Bezier B-spline, so it kind of, you know, smoothly transitions from this thick shape to this thinner shape. Okay, and it's just an example. Okay, we can tweak this further, but just to, you know, get this look, and we can adjust this cross sectional area to scale all together. So there's a couple of options here. Cool. So we've got the handle pretty much. Okay, but the problem is that this handle needs to be merged with, let's put a null first. Okay, we'll call this out handle, h not capital, and we'll color this blue as well. And we need to merge this by using a merge node with the cup, but you can see it's just intersecting. It's not like intersecting, it's not like merging properly. And this is where we can use our VDBs. Okay, now VDBs, if you type VDB, this is a special node which kind of converts the polygons into VDBs. VDB is like a volume. Okay, and there's a way to convert it. There's a node called VDB from polygons. Convenient. It just converts it into this. It sort of creates these volume voxels, and it kind of creates this shape. But the problem is that their voxels are really huge and it looks really terrible. So we can actually reduce the voxel size here. I'm going to reduce it by 10 times, and then there'll be much smaller voxels and it will kind of fit better. Great. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use VDB smooth. There's a VDB smooth, so I'm going to smooth the VDB itself, which is very convenient. Okay, and we can smooth it a couple of times, but I think 4 is fine. We don't want to adjust that too much. Okay, there are some other options as well for VDB. You can explore them further, but this is what I'm going to do. And now that we've smoothed everything, we can convert it back to a polygon, and we use that by typing convert. Okay, so there's an option to convert. It's just convert. No, it's not convert, it's convert VDB. Okay, so there's an option called convert VDB, so it will allow you to convert the VDB from a volume to something else, and you can choose what, and I'm going to choose polygons, and it just makes a polygon. Crazy, right? I feel like this is a bit too thin, so maybe we can expand this like 0.8. There we go, it's a bit thicker here then. And perhaps this one can come down a bit. There we go. Okay. Now this handle doesn't look great, but now I know this handle doesn't look great, and that's okay, because remember, this is an input which we will correct inside of Unreal. So let's not worry too much about this for now. Okay. Cool. Now we have a handle as well as no handle. So how do we kind of switch between these two? Okay. Well, there's a convenient node called a switch. If you use this node, you can put in multiple connections to this, and you can see here that it has only one single input. It just asks you to select between the first and second. Now because I've connected these two, watch what happens, right? When I connect this to the switch, immediately it adds out cup as an input. When I connect this one, it adds convert VDB as an input. Okay, and we can switch between them. The 0 is this one, 1 is this one. We can even swap them up and down, just change the order so that you can have multiple inputs into the switch. But I like to keep just 2 inputs. It's really convenient. Okay, and voila, we have the ability to switch between original and this one. Now, one thing I want to do is in the original cup, you can see here, we don't have any UVs. In the sweep node, we actually have a UV, compute UVs, and boom, it automatically computes UVs, which is really useful. But the problem is, as soon as we use VDBs, we destroy those UVs. So I'm going to create a new UV unwrap, and this is going to automatically unwrap it for us. It's not going to be ideal, but it'll be something. Okay, and here we are. You know what, I'm just also going to increase the resolution of this just a little bit. Okay, so I want it to be circular. Great. And now we have the handles. Pretty easy. Okay. Finally, we want to create the lids. So how are we gonna do that? Well, before we do that, let's sort of compile all of this into a new. This is actually the handle, you know. So we'll call this handles. Great. And we can call this sort of a different thing, which is, you know, VDB combine, okay, something like that. Okay, because I'm combining it using VDBs, so that's cool. The last feature that we want to include is a cover, a cap. If we want to include a cap, how do we do that? Okay, pretty easy. Let's use the same exact technique. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy these by selecting them, alt sliding it this way, and boom, we have this kind of shape. Okay, but for this one I'm just going to go into the surface. I'm just gonna delete all this stuff. Okay, and I'm also going to reduce the, what's that? Okay, I'm also going to reduce the height of this. I'm going to maybe bring this something like that. There we go. Cool. And I think we're okay. Okay, so that's our cap. Okay. Let's also go to cap roundness. Kind of do something like that. Cool. Now we have an interesting cap. Nice. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to well, let's also subdivide this, you know. In fact, we could use the same technique we used here. We can kind of, you know, what we could do is we could, you know, select top. I'm going to copy paste all of this stuff over here. Okay, I'm going to disconnect that copy paste, and I'm just going to connect it like this. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm selecting the top cap, but instead of selecting the top cap, I'm going to put -1 here, and I'm going to select the bottom cap. Great, excellent. And I'm going to blast that, and I'm going to extrude that, fuse it, subdivide, smooth, normal, and there we go. We got a really interesting shape. Subdivide, let's just reduce the subdivisions a bit. Okay, there we go. And pretty cool, we have this cap. Now I'm just going to template my bottle here for a second, and I'm also going to reduce my radius here just a bit. Whoa, just a bit, you know, something like that. Because, well, not so much. Okay, so I want to cover this, but it's not in the right place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top cap, okay, and I'm going to blast this again. But this time, instead of blasting the top cap, I'm going to blast the non-selected, so everything other than the selected top cap. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to use a new node called match size. Okay. And I'm just going to disconnect this for a second. And what match size is, I'm going to connect this to the second input and connect this to the first input. I'm going to show you what's happening here. Okay, and voila, you know what is happening. So here I have this object which has a bounds. You know, the bounds, as you can just imagine, if there's an invisible box surrounding this that's just touching the perfect edges and the top piece, the top and bottom, it's just perfectly enveloping, weird word, enveloping this top cap object. And what the match axis does is it takes two inputs. The first input is the geometry to move and resize, and the second input is geometry whose bounding box is to be matched. So what it's doing is it's taking this thing and it's moving and matching the bounding box of this. So you can see this blue thing is the bounding box of this object. You can see it's perfectly aligned. Okay, let's just do this. Well, maybe the other way. You can see here blue, the outline is like the bounding box of this object. Actually, the outline is the object and the blue thing is the bounding box of that object. And we have moved, because everything is trying to move this to the center of this, so that's really convenient. Let's just template this again. And I think it's a bit too small. I reduced the size a bit too much. Let's just increase it a bit down, and we can reduce the length even more. And I think we can move this end cap size a little bit more. Okay, there we go. So now we've got this really cool cap. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy this as well and just rename this from cup to lid. Okay, and then I'm gonna copy this switch. I'm gonna name this switch handle. I'm gonna name this switch lid. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna disconnect all this. This switch goes here, this switch goes here, boom. And now we can what's wrong? Oh yeah, the merge. Okay, so we're switching between, so the switch is currently switching between the lid or the cup. That's not what we want. We actually want the switch to switch between the lid and the cup versus just the cup. Okay, so now it's going to switch between lid and the cup alone. Okay, because I merged, before that I merged the cup and the lid together. Okay, so yet another switch. Pretty cool. Okay, so now all we got to do, if we enable the handle and if we enable the lid, we're good to go, you know. And that's it. That's pretty much it. Now you might be wondering, how the hell do you do this in Unreal? Okay, and for that you need to create an HDA. Okay, and creating an HDA, yeah, there is a really good Unreal tutorial about this. So I don't really, not an Unreal tutorial, a Houdini tutorial by Houdini itself, by side effects themselves, and you can figure out all you need to know about HDAs. But essentially the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all this, and then I'm going to press this package, create subnet package, right? And then it's going to create this package, and everything has gone inside. And I'm just going to move this back up here. You can see the input is here, and all of the subnet is here. Now I'm not, if you right click and you click digital asset and you click create new, it will create a new HDA, and you can edit the parameters, but you can also just edit the parameters right here itself. So you can see parameters and channels, edit parameter interface, and here you can add custom parameters. I'm going to show you how the parameters look on my actual HDA because I don't want to create new ones. It's a bit annoying. So if I click here and I go to assets, edit. There's another way to select. When you create an HDA, you have to go to assets, edit assets, properties, and create it this way. And I have created all my parameters here. Okay, here I got all the cup settings and some separators and toggles and stuff like that to make it easier to organize and see when you look at it in Unreal. And we created this way. I could have created tabs. You can make these folders tabs in different styles. I created them as collapsible because for some reason the tabs are bugging out in Unreal and not working correctly, but this is how it looks. So this is really convenient now to create these assets. Now I can create any kind of cup, pot, dustbin, a bowl, plate, any kind of shape with this. And here's the thing, we can improve this further, you know. For example, I've done some grouping here which I don't need. I realized that I can just add a fuse and fix this problem, so we can just fix that and just save it there. We can there's, instead of subdividing here, I can use the same technique of this, but I'm not going to do that right now because I have to add some kind of parameters for that, I think, if I do that. And we can do so much more. Now, another thing that I've been thinking about doing is, for example, adding, you know, automatic liquid generation. So if I wanted a liquid to be generated inside of this, I could probably do that, you know. So that's another thing that I'll be looking into eventually. But for now, this is what I have. And let's just go back to our Unreal project for a second. And if you're just looking at my block out, you can now imagine, okay, for a moment, okay, what can we do? For example, these blinds, I have so many of them created. I just created some just basic lines in Blender, which is cool and all, but you know, if my window, if I decide that in the actual production I'm gonna be moving the small windows, then I'm gonna have to create a new asset. I can't just do this. It'll destroy the asset. Now this is a very simple model, but if it's a more complex model where there is, you know, there's a window behind this, and there's glass, and there's frames, and then there is like sort of stick that kind of turns this, opens this more, and there's like a string thingy, whatever. If you add a lot of detail to this, you can't just scale something like this. You'll destroy the UVs, you'll distort the shape, I'll give you an example. Okay, if you just take this bottle and I just look at that, yeah, I'm scaling it, but it really destroys the proportions of it, so you definitely don't want to do that. Or if you take this mug and you want to make it taller, you can make it taller by scaling it, but you'll destroy the proportions. So that's why we need to create like assets like this, where we can adjust the height using Houdini engine or a procedural technique. Not doing that destroyed my handle a little bit, but let's just undo that. I think it reset my curve. Yeah, it reset my curve for some reason. Okay, anyway, we'll deal with that later. But just think about it. Think about all this opportunities. For example, this could be an HDA, and this wall could be an HDA, and these pillars could be an HDA. Okay, you could think about an HDA. These lamps could be an HDA. You could adjust, for example, the height of this strand, the type of shape of this, lamp. Using the sweep technique, we could adjust sort of the lamp shade shape. We could adjust the bulb shape. We could decide various things about this lamp. Maybe how this, the stand thing looks. Doors like this, we could create different types of doors and adjust their look as well. We could adjust these kind of seats. Maybe if we want them to be, longer or shorter, these tables taller, shorter, we can create HDAs for everything. And all of this could be easily modified, and we can apply materials easily and make life a lot easier for all of us. So these are things that we could do. So imagine all the possibilities of using HDAs for creating a short film. You could create your short film much faster. Even these buildings, for example, each of these buildings could be an HDA. In fact, you could have an HDA that scatters these buildings in a certain way as well. So there's a lot of potential and possibilities to make your short film a lot easier. So I'll show you more Houdini stuff and all the new HDAs that I'm creating for this secret project, and I'll give you sort of an update on these projects as I go along as well. So I hope that this kind of inspires you to learn Houdini, because Houdini can really speed up your workflow. I hope it inspires you to approach things in a procedural way. I'm not an expert on this, definitely. This HDA, I've been trying to create HDAs for like a long time. I started learning Houdini back in January, I think, and I wasn't really making any progress until, you know, very recently. So and I still struggle with a lot of things in Houdini, but that's okay. You know, the more you figure it out, the easier it's gonna get, and you'll be able to create some amazing things. So I hope this really inspires you to, you know, go out there and learn Houdini, and create some awesome stuff. Yeah, that's all I had. So I guess I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye for now.